Sales Babble is sponsored by Outreach and its intelligent virtual assistant, Kaya, and Vidyard, a video solution for sales professionals.
But I don't want to do a demo for you and show you my solution and not have it hit the mark and not I want to show you things that are specific to your problems, your needs, and your environment. And that's why the discovery is critical. It's where you find out whether you're the right fit for the prospect and vice versa.
This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 381, The Enterprise Sale from A to Z, an interview with Paul Lesser.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and I want you to know that I'm trying to keep things simple here at Sales Babble and avoid the complex. But that's not always possible, especially with today's topic. When you're selling high-ticket items that require a number of people to sign off, you know that this sale's not going to be a cakewalk. We call this thing the enterprise sale or the complex sale, and there's a specific strategy for ensuring success when you're in this situation. But wait a second, I'm getting ahead of myself. Today I asked Paul Lesser to join the pod. Paul's a sales guy. He's never been a sales manager. He's never written a sales book. He's not trying to sell consulting or anything like that. He's just an incredibly talented sales professional who gets fired up and giddy with joy when it comes to the enterprise sale. In this episode, Paul's going to walk us through his sales strategy from A to Z, and you're not going to want to miss it. But before we get to that, here is a message from our sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Outreach. Imagine having a smart assistant, like an Alexa or Siri, join your customer calls, transcribe your conversations during the call, take notes for you, summarize action items, and prompt you with relevant information and coaching from your manager right in the moment when you need it, not after the fact. Outreach Kaya is an intelligent virtual assistant that brings together real-time sales enablement and advanced AI to make every sales rep more effective, every customer conversation more productive, and every coaching opportunity more precise, so you can close deals faster. If you'd like to see Kaya in action, schedule a demo at click.outreach.io/salesbabble Kaya today. That's click.outreach.io/salesbabble-KAIA. And so, with no further ado, let's get to it. Welcome, Paul. Are you ready to babble?
I am ready to babble.
Paul, you and I were just talking a second ago, and you said that you had a new goal for 2021. What's that goal?
So, goal for 2021, I decided that I wanted to be a guest on podcasts. Interestingly enough, this is just my way after 25 plus years in sales, the last 15, 20 years in enterprise sales, just to give back to the sales community. If one person out there who's listening to your podcast can learn something and they can improve their sales acumen from something that I say or a question that you ask, I think that from my perspective, I'd consider this podcast to be a success.
Awesome. Now, you said something interesting. You said that you've been in enterprise sales for quite some time. What do you mean by enterprise?
Great question. Enterprise obviously means different things to different people. My enterprise sale is really Fortune 500, Fortune 100, the household names that we all do business with and know very well, the public companies that are out there who are driving a lot of of our economy today.
What makes these sales unique?
What makes these sales unique is really the complexity of it. In the sale that I sell, selling software, It takes between 12 and 20 people within a prospect's organization to get to know who I am, to see value in my solution, from my solution to solve key problems. It takes a team of people on the prospect side to buy into the solution. Solutions can range anywhere from low six figures, well into the seven figures. So it's a substantial investment from a company perspective. So communicating with multiple people or a team of people within the prospect is critical to the success of my sale.
It's almost like you're a master of ceremonies, in my experience.
Yeah, I would say in a way, master of ceremonies, quarterback,
yeah,
is another term. I'm a sports guy to use
yeah,
a
yeah,
sports
yeah.
analogy. You need, even on my side, I don't sell alone. I have a team of people behind me, solution architects, people who provide the technical information, people who provide live demonstrations, at the right time, maybe even to pull in your CTO or your CEO to have a conversation with a prospect. So it really works two ways. It's multiple people within my organization communicating with multiple people within the prospect's organization. And then, as you said, the ringleader, the ringmaster, or me being the quarterback.
Yeah. Of course, when you're dealing with lots of people, you need somebody to kind of concierge you into the system. How do you do that? How do you get that appointment first schedule? How do you know who to talk to? What's the process that you've used and you've been able to find success?
Yeah, well, I've had success in really focusing on vertical markets, although I'm not specifically vertically focused.
Now, what do you mean by vertical?
A lot of my customers are in the financial vertical market or the insurance vertical market or the healthcare vertical market. And sometimes, or many times, a lot of these financial firms, to use them for an example, have very similar problems or very similar pain points. So when you're prospecting into a new financial firm, for example, very easy to find the right person that you want to speak with, utilizing LinkedIn and some other resources. And you're absolutely right. It is critical to have somebody within that organization who's a champion for your cause, who helps you communicate your messaging throughout the organization.
Awesome that you just said that you reached out to someone on LinkedIn. How would you do that? What's the process that you use to connect with the right person?
So LinkedIn has really transformed my business and my method of prospecting and selling. I use a LinkedIn Navigator, for example. If I'm looking for somebody within Morgan Stanley who has a title that consists of the words video or collaboration, me selling software in the collaboration space, it's very, very easy for me to use LinkedIn Navigator and very quickly find the exact people based upon their title that I want to be communicating with. It also gives me the ability to look at their history, obviously, so I can understand a little bit about where they're from, where they went to school, previous jobs that they've had. I can determine whether they're connected to other people that I might know. Do we share some colleagues or some people in the industry in common? And LinkedIn also gives me the ability to do research on the company. So if I'm researching CVS because I want to prospect into CVS, I can do a whole load of research on CVS prior to engaging with the prospect during my initial reach out.
I love that. I love that. Do you go directly for what's your first interaction with them? Do you move to a phone call? What do you? Is it all done through? Do you move them off to email? What's the next step?
There's a lot of noise out in social media that, the phone is dead because there are so many other methods of communication. And I am a firm believer in picking up the phone and having a conversation. I will certainly follow up with an email. I will use LinkedIn in mail to communicate and to do some prospecting. But I believe that there's nothing like having a conversation. And, we live in a world, unfortunately, today where, we're in the midst of a pandemic, but that has enabled a lot of video communication these days. I just think speaking to somebody and seeing them is really, really critical to the relationship and the sales process.
Yeah, we're in an interesting space right now. And especially with the vaccines on the horizon, and whether we're ready for this or not, but the economy is starting to open up more. How would you compare the phone to a Zoom call to an actual in-person meeting?
So I don't think anything will ever take the place of an in-person meeting. I think sitting at in a conference room, excuse me, across from people, and sharing dialogue and understanding body language and shaking somebody's hand is absolutely critical to the sales process. I think with what we're going through today, um, video has been a huge, huge help in giving you that personal connection to people. I don't think it's a replacement for visiting a client. But what I will share with you that I find very, very interesting is I don't know if enterprises are going to be willing so often to spend money on travel post COVID to have face-to-face visits as often. I think now with the advent of video, there's certainly a place and an importance for face-to-face, but it doesn't mean that every time you have something important to say or you have a proposal to give to somebody that it has to be done face-to-face.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Sales Babble is sponsored by Vidyard. Vidyard is an easy-to-use yet powerful video solution that makes it simple to create videos, host them ad-free, share them with others, and track their performance. Whether you're recording a video for one person or sharing it with the world on your website, it's easy to manage your video content. Vidyard's solution is built for business with robust analytics, integrations with top enterprise tools, and customization options that answer businesses' unique needs. But you may be asking yourself, what's this got to do with sales? Well, with Vidyard, you can differentiate your emails by putting a face to a name when prospecting, following up, and demos. You can use the same CRM and outreach tools that you use every day to build content the entire sales team can leverage and track analytics to know which videos convert best. Sign up for a free Vidyard account today by going to vidyard.com/babble, and as a bonus, get their high conversion virtual sales playbook. Again, go to vidyard.com/babble. That's BABBLE. But the conversation for the last year has been like, oh my goodness, look how wonderful all this video conferencing technology is. It's going to forever change business. And I'm kind of skeptical, especially the articles that you read where there's a lot of depression. There's a lot of loneliness out there. People haven't been able to hire because they don't really know how to train people. I think there's going to be a competitive advantage to people who aren't afraid to be in person.
Yeah, I agree. It's a very, very interesting conversation, and we'll see what happens over time. I find it interesting that Zoom has become a verb, right? You know, People's let's Zoom, or they call each other Zoomies. Um, you know, uh, to me, that from a marketing perspective is just absolutely um, is absolutely brilliant. And I do agree with you as far as the whole psychology of the employee um, being at home. For me, being in enterprise sales, I was working at home pre-COVID. I was doing some traveling to visit customers and prospects, which I'm obviously not doing, but I was used to the mentality of work at home. I
Yeah.
do agree with you that there is the mental aspect that needs to be taken into account um, with work at home. On the flip side of that is, I live 25 miles north of Midtown Manhattan, and a lot of my friends and colleagues were commuting to the city every day, taking the train. I don't know if those people are going to want to be back on a train 5 days a week. So I think there's a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah. That's the thing about salespeople is that they've been kind of living this life for a long time. It's, um, I've had people reporting to me from all over the country. And in fact, I was just telling somebody the other day, I was using a video software 18 years ago, demoing software. It wasn't as good as what we have now, but it kind of worked. It with the telephone call simultaneously.
Yeah, you know what else I really find interesting about this whole video in-person conversation? From a sales perspective, when you look at what I do for a living, it's about solving problems. It's about helping a customer go from point A to point Z and helping them along their journey. It's about filling gaps. So from that perspective, yes, video is important. Yes, face to face is important. But if my solution doesn't solve problems within a prospect, I have no chance of doing the business with them regardless of what the media is.
So how do you do that? What is your process for qualifying to see whether or not you've got a good fit or not?
I think it's all about discovery. The first phase of a sales process, in my humble opinion, needs to be a detailed discovery, and the prospect has to have buy-in that they're going to take the time to have a collaborative conversation and answer your questions. I sell a piece of software that does a ton of things and has a significant amount of capabilities, but I don't want to do a demo for you and show you my solution and not have it hit the mark and not I want to show you things that are specific to your problems, your needs, and your environment. And that's why the discovery is critical. It's where you find out whether you're the right fit for the prospect and vice versa.
Are there any specific questions that you like to ask or you find recurring you're always asking over and over again?
There are, I would say that I've really trained myself well, first and foremost, to ask very open-ended question, like, um, can you explain to me your process for doing this? The solution that I sell is very cloud centric. So I'd ask a prospect, can you tell me about your migration or evolution to the cloud? I think the questions are important, but perhaps more important than the question itself is making sure that they're open ended. So the prospect is spending time talking as opposed to answering yes no questions. And I also think that during discovery, you're always doing discovery because even if you sell a customer a solution that solves some major problems for them, perhaps there are other problems that you can solve and more that you can sell to them in the future. So I don't think the discovery process ever really ends, but it's important for the first stage in the sales process to be discovery.
So let's say it looks like the conversation is going along well. You've asked a lot of questions. It's been pretty clear that they're qualified. They're really qualified. They're really, 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 really qualified. You've given your demo. How do you close them?
Yeah, well, my sales cycle with what I sell is anywhere from 8 months to
Yeah, you said that.
sometimes it can be a year and a half. And
You're right.
but it's a great question because here's what I find interesting. I don't ask for the business. It just seems in my sale to be the next logical step in the
Yes.
process. So, you've done your discovery, you've presented your solution, you've provided pricing. The next step might be a conversation about how are we going to contractually conduct the business. The next conversation might naturally be with procurement, and they're going to try to beat you up on price a little bit. So the close just happens naturally if what you have solves major problems for the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's take a more negative view of this. So you're in that table. Everybody's sitting around the table, and it's pretty clear during the presentation you've got stakeholders with opposite agendas. How do you address that? How do you get everybody to start paddling the canoe in the right direction, in the one right correct direction?
So sometimes it can be very difficult. I think that question sort of goes back to LinkedIn again and doing your research so you know the people in the room who you're speaking with. And the more you know the people, the more you can navigate those potential traps. But there always are times where a sale is moving along at a very nice pace, or the sales process is moving along at a very nice pace, and you have people who aren't believers. And sometimes, after you've identified who those people are, you need to have an honest conversation with them. There's nothing wrong with picking up the phone and having a one-on-one conversation and just, you know, asking them if there's anything that you can do to make them a believer or give them more confidence in the solution or ask them for an endorsement. I think part of a salesperson is also being a psychologist and also understanding just sometimes by body language who's in your corner and who's not.
Yeah. I used to have so many IT people in the room. They didn't want to do anything. They were happy to talk to you. They didn't want any new software in their organization. Nothing. Didn't matter what it was.
It's so interesting. You know something? I love that you said that, and let me tell you why I love that you said that. Most losses, in my opinion, are not to a competitor. Not that my prospect isn't looking at my competitors. Of course they are. But most sales are lost to no decision. And that just is what you were actually saying is there's
Yes.
people, you could if you lose $1 million sale to no decision, if you lose $1 million sale to a competitor, bottom line is you still lost $1 million sale.
It's the notion that the person that you're really competing against is the status quo.
Exactly. And that's why you have to do proper discovery to understand the environment. So your solution is just so compelling that they can't say no. Because the other piece of the puzzle is not only the buying of the solution, it's the prospect who's now your customer needs to make a time and energy investment in getting your solution implemented. So there's more pieces to the puzzle than just closing the business. The work just starts actually after the close.
I agree. There's a big cost on their end. It's just not the dollars for the software. Free trials aren't free. It takes a lot of labor to run a free trial.
On both my side and the prospect
Yep.
side, and they have to be willing to commit that time and effort,
Yep.
or else they're trialing something that's not going to benefit them and they're wasting people's time. I agree.
Yeah. With that all said, it's a pretty fun experience, and it's quite a high when you close a deal.
I remember the first deal that I closed. It was a phone system. I was working for AT&T. I sold a phone system to a gas station in Queens, New York, and I get the same feeling today closing a deal that I did back then. And regardless of the size of the deal, regardless of how much commission it brings you, when you close business and you're solving a customer's problem, there's a lot of it's a wonderful feeling. And for me also, personally speaking, uh, sales is, yes, it's my career, of course. It's how I earn a living. It's also my hobby. I just love the art of the sale and learning about sales. And sales has changed a lot in the last 20, 25 years. Sales has changed a lot in the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Looking at your resume on LinkedIn the other, Paul, you've been at a lot of places, but it looks like you've rarely been a sales manager.
So interestingly enough, never had the passion or desire to go into management. I've never interviewed for a management job. I've always wanted to be what I guess we would call an individual contributor. I like being that quarterback and quarterbacking the sale and the sales process. I really don't have an interest in managing people. Um,
And there's
it's
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and you know something, there's also a lot of, there's a lot of debate out there. I don't think it's much of a debate, but just because you're a top salesperson and you're in the upper 1% doesn't mean you're going to be a good sales manager. So honestly, humbly speaking, I don't know that I would even be good at it. What I do know is I found something that I am good at and I'm going to stick with it.
And it sounds to me, and because you're always selling something new, that's pretty clear looking at your career. Every day's an adventure.
Every day's an adventure. Every day you're meeting new people. Every day you're having new conversations. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about it. I enjoy the human element of it as well. Listen, me and you just met each other recently. Uh, I have a call with a prospect in an hour, and they're introducing me to people within the account that I've never met before. I think part of the love of sales is the people interaction, and I absolutely enjoy that.
It's been really great having you here, Paul. If people want to connect with you, reach out to you, what's the best way of doing that?
So you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Paul Lesser. I work for Nectar Services Corp. I am happy to engage in any kind of sales conversation. I love talking sales, so feel free to contact me and I will respond in short order.
Thank you very much, Paul, for babbling here on Sales Babble. Love it, love it, love it.
It's been a pleasure.
The enterprise sale revolves around nurturing customer relationship, which is just going to mean a longer sales cycle and a higher risk. And as the seller, you're the most important element when it comes to securing and retaining enterprise customers. To connect with Paul and to get links to him and his LinkedIn, you can find that in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. You can also find links to our sponsor, Vidyard, and Outreach. Please support our sponsors. It would mean all the world to me. If you got any questions or comments, folks, don't hesitate to reach out. And if you could give us an honest 5-star review, that would be awesome. That's all I've got for this week's folks. Until next week, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.